gmail.com. It's the email address.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to hand out John's cell phone number as my own all weekend. So as Roy mentioned, the configurations are a little different. So I want to start with the configuration that all of you are getting. All 10 sites are going to have a basic audio configuration to begin with. But what that means is this case right here. This is an audio case that will allow you to have your own microphones, to have your own mixer, and then the audio will travel from there either to speakers that you may have, or if you don't have speakers at your site yet, the sound will come out of the mixer directly to the house speakers at that location. But this is what will go from there. So these cases, and there are locks at the top, but they're not locked. Don't worry about locking them. I would drill the locks off of myself because keys tend to disappear. To know which way is the front or back, or top or bottom, the locks are on the top, and you'll see the name of the site right here. So if you're facing the front of the unit, you can read the name right there in front of you. So that way you know which is top, because to actually roll this, you would turn it on its side. The wheels are right there, and there's a tow handle on the side. So that way you know which way's front and which way's top. So there's a back and a front cover to this. Maybe keep me out of it apparently. All right. And then the back cover I've already pulled off as well. Now what's the great thing about this case, and the video when we get to it in a minute as well, is I've tried to hook up as much as I possibly can. So hopefully most of this will be plug and play. The back of the unit, the most important part is the plug to plug in. So when you plug that in, there is a power switch right here at the bottom. These are powered rack units. There's a power switch right here that you turn on, and the light turns red, and you'll start to see stuff light up. There's also a outlet right here on the front, so if your cell phone's dead like mine will be, you can charge it as you're using the unit. So the basic configuration, what we've got here, we've got this power strip right here, we've got 3 microphone receivers, and we've got the audio mixer. The audio mixer's on a slide, so you can slide the mixer out to get to the controls. One thing to note right here, the mixers they're flat. I have not done any EQ adjustments to any of the mixers because every venue is different. I could set it up for my church building and it would squeal like the devil at your facility. So know that everything on this board is flat, it's plain, you will need to adjust it for your venue. So don't wait till you're ready to use it, to test the mics. You need to do this as soon as you can get all this stuff hooked up, to go through your vocal testing to make sure that there's no feedback and that sort of thing. There are 4 mic inputs right here on this, even though there are 3 receivers. And I've numbered them 1, 2, and 3. There's a drawer in the back that has your 3 microphones. 2 of them are handheld microphones, Sennheiser mics. And then we have this lavalier mic right here. These Sennheisers, the power switch is on the bottom right here, the little red button. You push and hold that for a couple of seconds and your light will start to display right here. They're color coded to know which receiver it goes with. So right here I've got number 2 orange, so you'll know the orange mic is number 2. You can tell if it's on, if you're not holding the mic, you can see if there's a signal. So right here I've got mic 3 turned on and it no longer says mute there. The mute has gone away and there's a battery symbol. So the receiver knows how strong the battery is in the microphone. So you don't have to go up and actually look at the microphone. You can tell by looking at the receiver right here. For the lavalier mic, to get to the power switch, you flip that open, you push and hold that on-off button right there, and it will power up. And then you just close the lid. These are already preset with their own frequency, which is you shouldn't have to adjust the frequency in the microphones. But in case you're at a venue where you may encounter some interference with somebody else in the venue and you need to change frequencies, you can go through the menu settings on here and change the frequency. You'll just need to change it on both the transmitter and the receiver to get them to match. But it's just simply by hitting the set button, and then you just simply go through the up or down arrow until you get to where it says frequency preset, and then you hit set and you pick a different number. So like this mic right now is on channel 1.1. So you could go to channel 1.2 or 2.1, whatever you want to. There's 20 different banks and many frequencies within that bank, so there's just a number of them. It's not that big of a deal to change it here. What will be an issue is if you're in Nashville or Atlanta and you need to change frequencies, be careful what you change to, because it might interfere with someone else in one of the other 3 rooms in Nashville or one of the other rooms in Atlanta. So like these frequencies right here, like this is on channel 1.1. So the way I did Nashville is there's 1.1, 2.1, 3.1, 4.1, 5.1. So if we encounter any interference in Nashville, then the microphone that's having interference issue, we won't change the first number, we'll change the second number. So instead of being on 4.1, we'll go to 4.2. That way we know we're not going to interfere with the other 11 microphones in Nashville because they're on their own bank. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. By the way, stop me. I don't want to sit here and talk for an hour. If y'all have questions, please stop me. I'd rather answer questions than just sit here and talk the whole time. So when you're done with the microphones, by the way, the battery life on Sennheisers are great. I love them for their battery life and their signal strength. So, you know, batteries shouldn't be as an issue if you have versus a Shure mic. But if you push and hold the button on the on and off button, it'll say off and it'll turn itself off after about 3 or 4 seconds of holding that. The same goes for the bottom of these. If you just push and hold that red button on the bottom, then once you do that, it will say the word off right there, and it will go off. And on the display, you will no longer see the battery life indicator. It'll say the word mute or something like that, so you'll know on the receiver that the microphone's been turned off as well.
How do we get to the batteries on the handhelds?
Good question.
How do we charge those?
So these will
Okay, we'll just
come right out like that, and then that door will open, and then you just pull that battery out like that, change them, and put them right back in there. I know it. It's that easy. And then you just simply screw it back tight right there, and you're good to go on that.
What's the likelihood that we might need extra batteries?
You probably will, which is a note because all of us have batteries.
On the back of the table, right behind you.
Did I
Behind the
put them over
case.
here?
Behind the case.
Yep. So, got a pack of 20 batteries in all the cases. So every site has, in one of your boxes, you will see a pack of batteries in there of 20 batteries. So that should be enough for the weekend, you know. And then next year, I would, you know, make sure we have a pack of batteries to go. But yeah, everybody, this should be enough. The batteries are fresh in the mics that are in there now. They're brand new batteries. So you should be good on battery life, but they just use 2 AA batteries. So, you know, nothing real crazy there.
It'd probably be wise to go ahead and put fresh ones in when you know
Yes,
you're gonna be using it
that's
for an
true.
hour or two.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends. When I say long battery life, I mean, I could probably get 8 to 10 hours
Okay.
of use out of this. I'm a Sennheiser guy, have been for many years.
They're good stuff.
In TV, I worked with both them and Shure. Shure mics tend to be a little stronger in signal strength, but their battery, they just drain batteries. So I'm just not a fan.
You said the receivers have a battery symbol on them when the microphones
Yes.
are on. Is that also an indicator of the level of charge of the battery?
That's exactly what it is. So
Okay.
so if the battery, if the wireless mic is losing battery strength, you'll be able to know it by just looking at the
Okay, so
display.
we'll be able to see it before it goes dead.
Yes.
All right. Cool.
Yes.
That's definitely.
That's the beauty of having these, you know, because they do make some portable receivers, but having these rack mounted receivers, that's one of the benefits, is you can see the battery life of the wireless transmitter you can see that here without actually having to go look at the microphone yourself. So, very, very nice piece there. In the drawer back here, I mentioned I have 4 inputs on the board. The 4th one is for this right here. This is to take audio from your laptop if you're going to play something that needs to be heard off of your computer. So if there's some video that's got sound or whatever, this will plug into the microphone jack, and then this is a volume control that controls the volume coming out of your laptop. And then the 4th cable you'll see is plugged into number 4 right here. I'm going to see if I can spin this around a little bit. Let's see if I can see this. So in the back right here, it may be tucked in somewhere, but I've already got an XLR. This is called an XLR audio cable, standard microphone cable. So you just simply connect these two, and it just snaps right into place. So now you've got this connected, and then you would connect this to your laptop, to the microphone or headphone jack on your laptop, and that way it will allow that audio and then to come into the mixer on line number 4.
So now you have 2 volume controls for that?
Yes.
One there, one there. Which one?
One there and one there. Whichever one, I mean, sometimes you may need both,
Okay.
because the headphone jack level may be so weak that you'll need to boost it here as well as on the board. So you're just finding that sweet spot, you know, and again, this is something, if you're gonna do, test it before there are people in the room before you need it.
And would this be the way we play the songs that are recorded already on the computer on the presentation?
Yes, this is how you get audio off of the computer that's gonna play anything that's gonna be heard. You'll need to use this jack. And I've got, again, there's a drawer like this on all the kits, and this just sits right here in this case with the microphones. There is also in here, and I don't think you'll need it, but I went ahead and kept it in here, there's a USB cable, because this mixer has a USB jack where you can use it as a digital if we ever need to do that with this one. I don't think we will, but it's in there just as since it came with that mixer.
And while we're talking about the songs, we'll be doing 4 songs this year instead of just 2. So those of you with history are familiar with the Olympic theme and Chariots of Fire, but there are 2 other songs added. One when the little kids go across stage, and one during Bartimaeus. So now you're having 4 songs you're playing.
Yes.
Does this system in any way use phantom power? Is that something we need
It won't for the wireless mics,
Okay.
because they're taking care of their own power.
to, right?
The headphone jack off your computer shouldn't need phantom power.
Okay.
But if there's a switch on the mixer that will provide phantom power.
Is it on the front of the mixer or on the back?
It'll be on the top, somewhere in the top panel on the mixer. There are no controls other than the power switch on the back of the mixer here.
Okay.
And I've tried to have everything on that's supposed to be on. So when you plug this in and turn the power switch on in the front, everything just comes on. So that was really my goal, to make this as easy as possible, to have as much of this already pre-plugged and pre-turned on for you as possibly can. All right, so we've got our mics set up. Now we need to get audio out of the mixer. And again, there are 2 different options. Some of you will send audio out of this mixer, and you will plug it into the house sound system at your venue, like in Dallas, where the house speakers will then take the audio from there. So what you will they'll ask you for is an audio feed. And in your kit, you're going to have some audio cables like this. And they're going to be the same type mic or cable like this. And again, it's an XLR audio cable. So on the back of the mixer in the top right corner, you'll see what's called a main output. Main left and main right, main L, main R. You can send either one. Just plug it into one or the other and give them the other end of the audio cable. It's a one-way cable, but it's pretty obvious how this gets plugged in. It'll only fit in one way, but you'll see the outputs in the top right of the mixer there, where you plug that in, and then this will plug into their wall jack, and that'll send audio out of your mixer into their house sound system for them to be able to project it. If you're using one of our own speakers like this one here, we've got a majority of the venues will have our own speakers. These are the speakers. They come in these rolling cases right here. There's two speakers in each case. So if you've got speakers, you've got at least 4. There's some venues are going to have 6 because they're bigger, like Nashville Blue. But these are 4. So the way this will work is you'll plug a cable like this, or one of these 100-foot cables, out of the mixer, come under that main output, and you'll plug the other end of it into the mic line input right here on the back of this mixer. So that's going to bring audio from the mixer into the speaker. Now these speakers are powered speakers. There's no amps. The amp is already built in. So you simply plug it into a wall outlet, and that's what provides the amp and the power to turn the speaker on. There's a power switch right there to turn the speaker on. You can adjust the gain if you need to adjust that coming out. And these are 1,000-watt speakers, I believe, or 2,000-watt speakers. And then from there, because they're powered, they also allow you to daisy chain. So if, like in a venue that's going to have 4 speakers, you'll plug into one, and then you'll get another audio cable and plug into the jack right below it. And that's the output. So it kind of loops through, and then run another one of these audio cables to the next speaker, and just until they're all 4 plugged in and getting an audio feed. Where to place the speakers, it really is going to depend on the best location at the venue. I would say if you've had speakers in the past, put them in the similar location. Don't put them behind the stage or you'll get feedback. So you want to set these up at least parallel to the front of the stage, if not maybe a little bit in front. The way I generally will set these up at other events that I do is I will put 2 to one side of the stage and 2 to the other side of the stage, kind of spread them out. You know, maybe put one on each front corner, and then go to the other side of the screens and put 2 more, you know, one on each side of the screens like that. The other issue is going to be is if your venue has very strict codes. If your venue has very strict codes about cables and where they can run, where they can lay, you might be limited into where you can place these speakers. There is, by the way, while I'm thinking of it, in every case, a roll of, and it's buried in this one, there's a big roll of gaffer's tape. It's a black roll of gaffer's tape. Please use it. I don't want it to come back unused. It is there primarily for safety reasons, for you to tape cables down so people won't trip over them. It's not duct tape, because if you've ever used duct tape on cables like extension cords and then tried to peel it off, it's a nightmare. Gaffer's tape sticks really well until you're ready to pull it off, and then it pulls off really well and doesn't leave a lot of that residue behind like duct tape does.
And where you can, you also want to run them along the walls and where people are not going to be walking.
Yes, and a lot of the venue places are going to, like Nashville, for instance, they've got, you know, strict rules about where cables can run and how big they can be. And even then, if they're going to be anywhere near a walkway, you want to tape them down so that way people can't trip. Trip hazards, that's the #1 goal, is to avoid trip
Then
hazards.
it's not, we know that last year, at one place, somebody tripped, and we were thankful that it was not us, it was their PSA company versus us, but it could have been us. Point being, a cable's got to be taped down.
Yeah, if it's going to be across a walkway, then it's got to be taped down. You've got a really big fat roll of gaffer's tape in there, so there's plenty. Use it up. We'll get, you know, it's not that expensive. We can get more next year, but make sure the cables are taped down. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to the AV people there. They, you know, can certainly guide you through that process. While I'm I'll touch briefly on these cases. So some sites have 2 cases, some only have 1. All the sites have this long thin case right here. This is kind of the design for this case was to be able to hold all the tripods that the speakers sit on. as well as any kind of cables and that sort of thing that go in them. Whereas this case here was really for any site that has projectors. Like Orlando here, we've got 2 projectors in this case that'll sit in here, so that, and there's projector stands that are also in this case as well. It's a little bit wider to be able to accommodate all of that. You'll see in both cases a lot of cables in bags right now. You will not use all the cables in the cases. You will get in some venues. What I've tried to do is put enough cables in there so you can you've got what you need for any scenario. There's going to be some scenarios where your control table might be 20 feet from the first speaker, or your control table might be 75 feet from the first speaker. Well, the good news is we've got some shorter audio cables and we've got some longer 100-foot audio cables. So I've tried to put enough cables in there for you to be able to hook everything up in sequence and still get it from your control table where you'll be set up with the sound system. The same with power cables. If you've got speakers, then I've got at least one 25-foot extension cord for every speaker, because you may not be able to plug this speaker right up next to a wall outlet. You might have to actually get 15 feet away from the wall outlet. So there are enough extension cords in there to be able to run that as well. There's also every box has got a 25-foot and 100-foot triple tap extension cord. The idea for this is for you to be able to run this extension cord to your control table if there's not an outlet right next to you, to be able to then plug in these 2 boxes. If you've got 2, or if you've got 1, at least have 1 extension cord to be able to power everything you're going to need to be able to power up. So that way you're not having to run 5 extension cords or get somebody's power strip or something like that. All the power strips are kind of embedded already, so that way you just got 1 cord that everything plugs up to keep it as simple, to reduce the trip hazards, to reduce the number of cables. That's really the goal.
At most sites, the design with the hotel is for the control table to be near the wall, near one of the walls, which will make it easier then for running the cable up the side of the wall. Yes. And the power out.
That is the preferred location in most venues is to have your control table on one side of the room on a wall, and that way you can run both audio and, as we get into video cables with projection, will be the same way. Speaking of
the speakers, does every single speaker need to be coming out of the main XLR coming out of the back of the box? Or are there like 2 mains, like if you got 2 over there and 2 over there?
You can do it that way, right.
Directions.
You can do it left one side and right the other.
As far as speakers, Dallas will be using the house system, Memphis will use the house system, and Louisville will use the house system. So you'll be using the mixer tied to the house system at those sides.
Yeah. Yeah, the beauty of that is every site has control of the microphones now. You're not depending on someone's site to hopefully mix you correctly. You've got complete control of the mix, and you send your finished product to them for those.
Are there mic stands included
Yes.
as well?
So there are mic stands in there. They're not assembled. And I'll say it, but it's a little bit of assembly required this year on some of this. There's a lot of assembly happened here, but the mic stands are still in bags.
We can manage that.
I'm hoping so. But yes, there are 2 mic stands for the 2 handheld mics in each of there. There's also separately in the box a little Sennheiser, the part that the microphone goes into that screws onto the top of that. All of those are in the cases there, so you should have what you need. And by the way, if I've tried my best to keep an inventory list, but I may have missed something, and I've triple and quadruple. We were doing a lot of checking even today when we unloaded. So if you did, just make a note. Let me or Roy know. We'll get it squared away for 2019. But certainly, as you see in these cases, when you open up, you're going to be like, I don't think you missed anything. There's a lot of stuff in there. So, yeah. All right. Any questions on audio before I move on to projection? Okay. Great. Yes.
Everybody know how to equalize it?
Pardon?
Does everyone know how to equalize it?
If you don't know how to equalize, to run EQ on a mixer, you might want to either find someone that does, or maybe look on YouTube a little bit. There are some adjustments you can make to gain an EQ to really make it sound good. It would take probably a couple hours on my part here to try to do that tonight, so I'm not gonna try to go through EQ here tonight. But just know this mixer, and this is a Mackie mixer, so Mackie makes really, really good stuff, and I think it will deliver what we need to do on that. So
But is there a good chance we'll have to do some adjustments besides just the volume?
there might be.
Let's try that first, and then
Yeah, try your volume first, and maybe the gain at the top, and then after that, you might need to adjust EQ. Some rooms resonate frequencies that create feedback. I have run EQ now at several events. We do exposure in December, then I'll be at Gulf 2 weeks later. I can load up our mixer. We've got a digital mixer, and I'll load the settings from exposure, and the feedback was just awful. And I had to completely change the EQ setting for the lavalier mic for that venue, because the acoustics are different. That's why I didn't even bother to try to set any kind of EQ for you, because every room's going to be different the way that the sound bounces. Yes.
Good question. You were talking about the sound from the lavalier mic. Is it going to be about the same as the wireless, or is it going to be
Yes,
different with the breathing and stuff?
Should be similar. I mean, obviously the mic's not here versus here. And if you're using the handheld, don't be afraid to get it close to your mouth. I mean, if you've got it way down here, it's going to be hard to hear. Those microphones are designed to be held up close to your mouth. They're vocal mics. So, don't be afraid to eat the microphone in that regard, and just talk normally into it. You don't have to talk loudly. Just talk normally into it, and it will carry from there.
and the board has a mute button on there to mute one of
Yes.
them if they're switching between MCs.
Right, exactly. And that's where, in fact, when you turn on your mixer, you will see that all 4 channels are already, there's a red light that's on all 4 right here. They're already muted by default. So you just push the button. It's a toggle button to turn the mute on and off right here on top of the mixer.
Couple questions.
Yes.
On the mic stands,
Yes.
is there a boom
Yes.
for the stand as well? It's not just a straight stand,
Yes.
because in Louisville, we've got a
Yes.
big podium that they give us that's the size of a battleship. And they gotta speak over it.
Yes.
Okay.
There are 2 mic stands, and they have the arm on them that.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. That's a good question. That was something that John had worked with me on. I got before we got the equipment. He was all over that. So
Now, who would, under what circumstance would we use the lavalier?
don't know.
Just in case.
Just be creative.
There might be someone that prefers a lavalier versus a handheld.
Keep it away from Clark Sam.
So it's an option. It's one of those, if someone needs to be able to use their hands and doesn't want to hold a mic, that microphone is there. It's available. And I've set up, by the way, all the mixers where the lavalier is mic number 1, and then mics 2 and 3 are the handheld mics.
A place where they make you use it is like for Bible Vault, because they're trying to read stuff off, and that may just be perfect for whoever's
Yeah.
reading it off.
Be more consistent that way because it's not moving up and down.
True.
Okay.
True. Yeah, some people will, they tend to bring the microphone down when and they lose that hand coordination when they're talking into it. So, all right. So projection. Again, the projection setup is different for everyone. We don't have one projector size fits all. Some venues are bigger than others, so some of you are getting different size projectors than others. I know Nashville Blue, the projector I held up, the one in Nashville, is about 2 times the size of that, just because the screens are bigger there than they are in Orlando. So the projectors are either in there or they're coming separately from other so forth. There's also going to be, and I've just got this unboxed because I was testing it the other day, but these are video extenders. And there's a pair, and I know this looks crazy, my apologies. But
No problem there.
yeah, I know, it looks like everything else I do. But what's great about these, they say on the top, sender and receiver. So what these are designed to do is to take an HDMI signal, like what you would send to your TV, your DVD player, whatever at home, your Apple TV, and convert it to an Ethernet cable, to the internet cable like you used to plug in on your computer. So you've got this that takes the HDMI signal, turns it into an Ethernet signal, and then on the other end, it flips it back. Takes the Ethernet signal and turns it back into an HDMI signal. So send it, receive it at the projector. So there's a pair of these, one for each projector. And then inside the case over here is a box. Oh, by the way, forgot to tell you, there's headphones for every place too. So oh, and one other thing, so I keep finding, it's like Christmas under the tree. Back to audio for a second. There's a box, each of you got one of these. It's called a Hum X. You probably won't need it, but if you plug up your house system and send them the signal and there's this awful hum, try this. Unplug that from the wall, plug it into this, and then plug this into the wall outlet. See if that doesn't reduce the hum. I put these in there just in case, because some places will have really weird grounding issues and the grounding becomes an issue. So this should help eliminate a hum if you've got a hum in the system. All right. So inside your cases, there's also this HDMI splitter. It's still in the box, nice and new. What this does is it takes the output of the video system, and we'll open that up here in a second. And not all of you has the video system. So some of you are going to only have the laptop that you're using to play the ProPresenter stuff that John's put together. So whether you're coming straight out of your laptop or you're coming out of the video switcher that I'll be demonstrating shortly, you'll run that into this splitter, and then out of the splitter, you would put your video signal in here and send that to the projectors. So HDMI cable comes into here, and then out of here the HDMI goes into this sender, sends it to the Ethernet cable, and then to the projector. Your cases have all those cables in them. So there's Ethernet cables. Let's see if I've got it. Some of them are going to be flat like this. This is a flat 100-foot Ethernet cable. So you can run between the sender and the receiver this cable and connect the two that way to the projector. Or you can, like I said, some of these are flat, some of them may be round, but it'll have an Ethernet jack on the end of it like you would plug into your computer to get internet access for your computer. And then from there, plug that into the projector, and that's how you get video to the projectors, is through that system. Does that make sense? Any questions, confusing on that? All right.
Those senders, receivers, the Ethernet things, they got to have power, right?
Yes, they will need power. So, and again, there should be some extension cords in. There should be enough where you've got like a triple tap or something like that to power both the projector and the receiver on the projector end. And then you can plug it in here or plug it into an extension cord or something when you send it as well.
Hey, Dennis, I was also going to say, if you want to mention that these are short throw projectors and that they need to sit lower than your screen. This is not like a regular projector that you're shining at the same level as your screen.
Right.
This will need to sit 3 to 4 feet below it.
Yeah, and again, you know, I can't just give you a blanket exactly here's where, because every projector, everybody's getting different projectors.
And different size screens. We
Yeah.
have a wide range of screens from giant to small.
So the
depending
best
on
thing
the
is, to plug it in and turn it on. Most of them are rear projection, so you'll set them behind and just move it around until it fills the screen and focuses and gets set up there. All right, any questions on that? Cool. All right. And by the way, let me just say, I'm not a fan of HDMI. It's one of the most fragile video formats. You rarely see it in television. What we see in television is primarily this because it's much more stable. This is an SDI cable, and it's a HD SDI cable. They're just much more stable. HDMI is fragile. So even though we've got you stacked with HDMI cables and stuff in here, it wouldn't hurt if you've got to make a Walmart run or something to just grab a couple of short HDMI cables, a little 3-foot, because they're notorious for going bad. I replace probably a dozen HDMI cables every year, at least, just because they're just, it's the worst. Sorry, didn't mean to rant on that. All right.
Tell us how you really feel.
Tell me, yeah, let me tell you how I really feel about HDMI. So, the day that will go away will be a great thing. All right. There are 6 rooms that will have this video set up. Again, everybody, all 10 rooms has the audio, but there are 6 that are getting this video set up right here. This is basically a video switcher, like that's an audio switcher, audio mixer. This is a video mixer. So this will allow you to mix what is feeding the projectors. So instead of, like I said, there's 4 rooms that are going to just come straight out of your laptop, and the only thing that's going to be able to be seen on the screen is what's being projected out of the ProPresenter, out of the projection. But the other 6 will have the ability to switch between the computer that's hooked up to this or a camera that's hooked up to this. So in those rooms, we have this pan tilt zoom camera, and the tripod for it, let's see, I got it out. Still in this bag, but there's a
By the way, the ones that we're using that, both in Atlanta will have also Orlando.
Right.
And 2 in Nashville we'll be using, and Louisville.
Right. And Memphis, I believe.
Yeah, and Memphis.
Memphis. Right. So these cameras here, this is a pan tilt zoom. Here's a tripod, which will be in your case as well, that will mount onto this. This is a pan tilt zoom camera that will be controlled with this controller right here. Sorry I didn't have anything more fancy to keep this right now. We've ran out of space. I thought the cases were big enough for this too, but they weren't. So this camera will be hooked up to this video switcher, as will the computer. I'm going to turn this, before I plug all this in, I'm going to turn this around so y'all can see the back a little bit. In the back is a patch panel, and right here you've got inputs for camera 1, camera 2, and computer, and then you've got an output here called projector. So what gets plugged in is the HDMI signal from your laptop that's got ProPresenter on it will plug right into here. The camera will plug with a video cable right into camera 1, and then this is where you'll come out of the video switcher to go to that HDMI splitter to then go to the extenders to the projectors. So that's kind of the workflow of how this goes. I mentioned when I said that there was also a camera 2 feed here. For 4 of the sites, we had enough money to get the full set of equipment, which includes a computer that I'll turn on here in a second to be able to live stream to Facebook. So we can show the award ceremonies live on Facebook by taking the video and the audio into this laptop right here to be able for people to be able to watch the award ceremony or whatever we want to live on Facebook. The reason there's a second camera is we've got in this box this little small camera right here, and there's a tripod for it. I didn't get that out of the box. But there's this little camera right here, and it'll mount to the tripod. But this is a wide-angle camera that will, when you've got it pulled up here on the computer, you'll be able to see what's happening on a kind of a wide-angle fisheye view of the room, which wouldn't be something you would want to show on the projection screens. If the projection screens are designed for people in the room to be able to either be informed by what's being shown on the projector or to see someone on the stage that's speaking on the stage. So the wide angle really doesn't do much. But for the internet audience, they want to see the full house, because then they want to say, oh, maybe that's where so-and-so's sitting. So even though this plugs in right here, this camera feed will only be available to the internet live stream. The only thing that will be available to the projectors will be camera 1 or the computer feed coming in. So let me get this all turned on here real quick. Again, the power cable. Turn our power switch on here. This right here on the front is the video switcher. And then this panel right here is going to be the multi-view to be able to see what the switcher has got up here. So right here it's pulling up the switch, and this is basically a multi-view to see what's feeding all the different inputs. So when you plug up the camera, and I'm going to let's plug up the camera next. So first, there's two cables that you need to get the camera fed in here. One's the video cable, and there's different length cables. This is a 25-foot, but there's some 100-foot cables in there as well. So we'll take the video cable right here, and we'll plug it into camera 1. And then the other cable you're going to need is an Ethernet cable, because the camera gets power from a network switch in the back as well as control. You can control it and power it over this cable right here. There's some shorter ones and longer ones in there as well. I thought I had already undone one, so I wouldn't have to sit here and sorry, I thought I'd already taken one apart, so I'll take one apart here real quick.
So basically, the camera comes into the switcher, and our computer comes into the switcher, and then the HDMI switches to Ethernet, which goes to the projector.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So you're basically adding instead of coming straight out of the laptop to the HDMI splitter, you're adding this in the mix because you're giving yourself the ability now to project a camera on the projection screen.
Now with the camera, will we be able to set like presets, camera angles and different things?
You can set presets, or you can control it with the joystick controller, and I'll show you how that works here real quick.
Where are the suggested positions of the cameras?